Hello everybody, this is Paramedic Pat. First of all, I want to thank everybody who subscribed and commented and viewed my first video. This paramedic stuff really works. Got a lot of positive feedback, so I'm going to go on and continue telling some of my old stories. Today, the one I am going to talk to you about is the first baby I delivered. Now, like I said, I was a paramedic from in the late 70s until 2000, so a lot of these calls I'm going to tell you about span a period of over 20 years. And you have to realize it was the equipment and the training that we had to deal with at that time. Some of the things and procedures that I talk about that I did were standard practice at that time. So if you are medically trained and you're younger and you hear something that I say that I did that you go, oh my gosh, I never would have done that. Well, just remember that the protocols and have changed a lot since this all started. So if something I say conflicts, do what you were trained to do, not what I said I did. Because at the time, like I say, it was an accepted practice. But anyway, like I say, this is about the first baby I delivered. She was 16 years old. Several of the babies I delivered were, the mothers were teenagers. But this one, she was about 16 years old. She's at home. Her older brother, I believe he was 17, 18 years old, is there with her. They realize she's in labor. They call mom at the laundry and tell her that she's in labor and that they're going to come by, pick her up, and head on to the hospital so that she can have the baby. So everything's going as planned, of course. And they pull up in front of the laundry, and they're driving an old, I think it's an old Chevy Impala, if I remember right. Air didn't work in it. It wasn't full-blown summertime, but it was warm outside. But the brother runs in, grabs mom, and comes back out. Well, in the period that he runs in and grabs their mother and comes back out, his sister's water had broken. Now the mother, having a couple of children herself, goes, I don't think we're gonna make it to the hospital. We need to call for an ambulance. So they do. And I happened to be on duty that day along with Shirley. And if you saw my first video, it's the same Shirley that was with me on that call. We roll up to the scene, and we've already been told the contractions are only a few moments apart. And I opened the back door of the old Chevy and look in and explain who I am. You don't want to start looking around in that part of someone, and to not explain who you are. Explain to her I'm a paramedic and I need to check and see how close she is to having the baby. Well, as I'm talking to her, I said, well, how far along are you? And I guess in the confusion and everything that was going on, she didn't really understand my question. I said, well, when is your baby due? And she goes, well, just here in a couple of weeks. So that was kind of a relief. It wasn't a real premature baby or anything. So being nearly full term is always a good thing to hear from the mother. So I check her. I explain to her what I'm going to need to do, and then I check her, and I can see the baby's head, the top of the baby's head. It's what we call crowning. And about then, she has another contraction. So I get out of the ambulance. I get back out and say, hey, get the stretcher. We're going to have to deliver in the back of the ambulance. And the mother's like, kind of, what? What do you mean? I said, we don't have time to make it to the hospital. Even with lights and siren, it's not going to work. I said, I think we're going to go ahead and deliver it here. We're going to put her in the ambulance. And I explained this to them. We're going to put her in the ambulance, and we got everything we need in there to get her to deliver the baby. So we put her on the stretcher very quickly and up and in the back of the ambulance. And we said, okay, we're going to shut the doors to kind of help keep the air conditioning in, and we'll let you know what's happening. Well, things are unfolding pretty quickly. She has another contraction, and the baby's head is starting to kind of protrude, as they call it. Well, in the meantime, Shirley has grabbed the OB kit out of the cabinet. And it's in a big old clear plastic bag, and everything you need. It's got clamps and a scalpel and suction syringe to get the mucus out of the baby's mouth and nose and everything. A little blanket, not a blanket really, I call it a towel to wrap the baby in, all kind of stuff you need in this one big bag. And it's kind of like opening a bag of potato chips. You have to tug and pull and tug, and then all of a sudden it kind of pops open. Well, that's what happened when it finally opened up and things kind of scatter. So the first thing I grab are the latex gloves. In those days, we didn't wear gloves on every call. That protocol hadn't come into being yet. So the only sterile gloves we had on the whole ambulance were usually in the OB kit, and usually only one pair of them. I put the gloves on real quick. The patient has another contraction, and the head's delivered. And I'm thinking, okay, this is going good. We're doing good. And I'm talking to the patient, and she's like, what's happening? And she's getting all excited, and I'm getting excited because it's the first baby I've ever delivered. It's just kind of an exciting thing for everybody. So I tell her, well, okay, his head's out. And then I do a quick check. One of the things you don't want to have happen is to check the umbilical cord, make sure it's not wrapped around the baby's neck. There's actually an easy way to get that off, and I actually did that on another baby that I delivered, and I might tell that story. But so far, we're good. So the next contraction happens, and the baby's shoulders are just about ready to be delivered. So you have to kind of wiggle, kind of hold the shoulders, and sometimes you got to kind of wiggle a little bit to get the baby to come on out. Well, one shoulder's kind of out, and she has another contraction, and I've got a baby. And she's I noticed real quick it's a girl. And, most mothers at about this time, but I looked up at her and I said, your baby, we've got her. She seems to be okay. And she didn't have a lot of reaction either way. You could tell she was, at this point, pretty overwhelmed by the whole ordeal. So one of the first thing you want to do before the baby takes its first deep breath, but I can see it kind of moving and grimacing and everything, so we're looking good. But before you clamp the cord and cut it, there's one thing that we were taught to do is that you suction the baby out. You get all the mucus out of their nose and mouth. So Shirley hands me the bulb syringe, and I push it in, and I stick it in the little nostrils. And even at that newborn, it's kind of grimacing at that, having something shoved up its nose. And I suction it out and get us a couple things out, and then suction down in the mouth. Well, now's the time that you want to do some stimulus to get the baby to take a good deep breath. You don't want to hurry this part. It doesn't matter. In fact, I usually didn't clamp the cord until I got them suctioned out and everything else. So I did that. So the next thing I want to do is to get a good response out of the baby. Now you see on the movies, they take and they hold the baby up high, like, yeah, here's the newborn baby that's got all kind of gunk all over it, and it's slippery, and you're going to hold it up like this by its legs and swat it on the bottom. That's not what you do. But what I did do is I would take the foot, and this is what I was taught in my training, you just thump the bottom of their feet. And that irritates them, and and finally she starts crying. And of course it's like, yay, we're not really yelling like that and saying yay, but you feel like doing it. So I get the clamps, and we go about 8 inches away from the baby, and we put both clamps on, leave a space about that big. And the baby seems to be doing real good. And finally the mother kind of realizes what's all happened. She goes, is the baby okay? Is the baby okay? Baby's doing fine. So we've got a deep breath. We cut the cord. I actually got to cut the cord for the first time with a scalpel. And everything's going good. Now, we didn't know what was happening outside the ambulance. We were kind of busy with what was going on in the ambulance. But it was kind of funny, after we got everything kind of squared away and the mother's holding the baby and everything, I decided I need to go outside and tell Mom that she's a new grandma. We found out this was going to be her first grandchild. And her son, he's now an uncle. So I step out of the back of the ambulance and go up to the mother. And by this time, believe it or not, not a crowd, but we had probably 10, 15 people standing kind of off at the back of the ambulance. And I guess word had spread, hey, they're delivering a baby in there. Well, I stepped out and I went over to the mother and I said, hey, everything's cool. You have a granddaughter. And all of a sudden, several people in the crowd actually tried to do a round of applause. Now, it kind of petered out pretty quickly, but it was neat. Everything together in this made it a very neat experience. Very quickly, we were able to let the grandma now get up and be able to see her new granddaughter and talk to her daughter. And since everything was going good, we went ahead and said, okay, you want to follow us? We're gonna head on to the hospital. And we did that, took her on in. Everything was great. Now, I never followed up, but as far as I know, the baby would be a grown woman now, maybe even have kids of her own, for all we know. Probably does. So that's the story about the first baby I delivered. All the deliveries I made were exciting in their own way, and I'll tell more of those as we go along in this series of stories. But I hope you enjoyed this one. It was a good event. Nothing went wrong, and I delivered my first baby, which is always a good deal when you're a paramedic. All right, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. Oh, like you're watching a TV program, but thanks for watching. And like I said before, I will try to put these videos up once a week. Try not to be any longer than that, to where people can look forward to the next episode. All right. Well, we'll see you next week. Everybody have a good day and a good week. Bye.